Hey guys, welcome to another For the Painter Good painting tutorial. My name's Sean and today we're going to take a look at a model that personally I really struggled with myself here. It's a Black Templar High Marshal that we have here from the Combat Patrol. I got this box actually in that case. Black armor can be really intimidating for a lot of people and I don't blame them. It puts a lot of people off of kind of actually collecting certain armies in that case. So we're going to try and tackle this together in a scheme that really works well. This is going to be a big shout out first of all to Mediocre Hobbies as well, by the way. His method for doing black armor is what we're going to base this scheme on a little bit in that case. So let's jump in and get started. So first of all, I applied a coat of Chaos Black, and then I applied a coat of Leadbelcher over this then as a primer then. And we're going to jump straight into that black armor straight away here in that case. So we're going to start here with some contrast Black Templar paint then in that case. As you can see here, I've also split the banner off, the actual backpack and the banner off separately here. It's really going to help me get into that cape here in that case. And when you see the colors that I'm doing the cape, obviously, you'll see why I chose to hold it off here. So what to do is apply this Black Templar contrast, of course, no surprises there that we're using that. Apply it all over any parts of the armor that you want to actually stay black in that case then in that case. So again, as the name implies, just stick it all over the armor here in that case as well. Also any of the kind of Maltese crosses or anything like that, don't be afraid to throw them over there as well. The ones that are on his chest in particular, and of course the helmet as well in that case. To be totally honest guys, this was a hard model for me to actually paint in that case. Now I can partly blame the scheme that I chose to do really here. The black with the stark white is obviously not very forgiving here in that case, but I did want to challenge myself here, and I'm kind of massive fan of the cream color in that case as well. I actually like the black and the stark white that you see in some of the artwork and that kind of stuff, though the cream seems to have taken over as a precedent basically in that case. So let's give this a go, and you can let me know if you think it turned out all right at the end, to be honest guys, but I think it turned out well in the end, but it was a journey to get there, let's put it that way. So you can see here, just take your time, apply this all over the armor here in that case. You can see I'm just going quite particularly about filling in the Maltese crosses and that kind of thing as well in that case. The Black Templars are obviously one of the first founding, or second founding chapters I should say, of the Imperial Fists after the Horus Heresy. They were, of course, their chapter master at the time was Sigismund, the Templar of the Imperial Fists, of course, here in that case. An amazing character, by the way. I must confess, by the end of the Horus Heresy at the Siege of Terra, the Imperial Fist did become one of my kind of favourite chapters, even though they really weren't for most of the Horus Heresy, to be honest with you here. But they really turned me to that, as well as, by the way, the novel. I'm sure most of us have read it at this point, but if you haven't read Hell's Reach, I really recommend you go and read that, as well as the follow-up book to that as well. There's a follow-up book that follows Grimaldus after that book as well. I highly recommend you go and read that. I think it's called Blood and Iron, or Blood and Steel I think it's called. Definitely go and check it out, because it involves the Black Templars and the Celestial Lions as well in that case. It's really good. Two books that really get you right in behind the Black Templars as a chapter basically and that kind of thing. Really, really good. Highly recommend, to be honest with you. So you can see we've applied the Black Templar all over the armor here, and that's dried in. What we're going to do just now is we're going to actually jump up to Leadbelcher here, and we're going to apply a liberal dry brush all over the armor here in that case. It's going to help us kind of pick out some of those armor panels and that kind of stuff. Gives it a little bit of a kind of subtle edge highlight. Also kind of adds a little bit of kind of a battle damaged vibe to the armor, I think, as well. It changes the properties of that Black Templar a little bit as well. Maybe I'm just doing the dry brush a little bit too heavy is the other thing, but I actually kind of like the result that came out of it as well, which is really good. So stick with me and let me know what you think when we actually get to the end of the video here, because I do think it's a little bit... I had a few points doing this model that I was quite unhappy with how this model was going, and only by the end, when I put it all together, did I actually see it and go, oh no, actually he looks really good at the end of this. So do let me know what you think at the time, and put a shout out in the comments below. What do you think was the ugly stage of this model? For me, I think you could argue that like a lot of the opening stages are the ugly parts of this model here in that case. So that's our dry brush applied now and that kind of stuff. My camera also did not want to focus on this guy at all, because actually for a lot of the tutorial he ended up a very similar color to the mat that was behind me, behind the camera there, basically in the background. So this is where my stark white is starting to come in and give me a little bit of nightmares here in that case. So I'm going to start with Corax white here, and we're going to layer up the cape then in that case. Now, I'm kind of a little bit fortunate, I think, and maybe I've just got a quite good pot of Corax white here in that case. I seem to be able to get quite a good kind of coat of Corax white on it. I would recommend you do 2 coats though, personally. Like, I generally got a good first coat as well. Even I went back and just did a second coat, and I think I've got obviously a reasonably good coat of Corax white, because I don't seem to have too many difficulties with it. Yes, it's a little bit thin, but you just work with that. It's just a different kind of consistency of paint, I think, there in that case, and you just treat it with different properties basically and that kind of thing. So all the bits that we're going to do in Corax white, it's going to be the capes, the tabards, obviously his robe that goes down his chest as well there and that kind of stuff. We're going to have all of them with a Corax white then in that case, and that's going to give us our stark white robes to begin with basically here in that case. So you can see, just take your time. Do try not to nick your armor. It's not the end of the world if you do. You can repair it easily. Just jump in with some lead belcher, some Black Templar, and obviously hit a quick dry brush if it's near an edge or anything like that as well. And ideally you should get it the same way, but do just try and take your time. I think this was maybe part of my fault as well, was I picked such a stark color that when you paint the white on it, it's quite intimidating to not nick any of the black as well and that kind of stuff. So fool on me, but I mean, it looks really good there at that point, doesn't it? Like, I mean, I think that looks pretty strong at the moment anyway and that kind of thing. So you can see that looks really good. And again, I just thought I'd show you some extra footage here of me taking my time going in on the shoulder pad as well, because obviously the Marshal and the Black Templar Combat Patrol has these really ornate, beautiful shoulder pads with the Maltese crosses in there, but the Maltese crosses obviously have the designs on them, like this one has a skull and the extra little points that come out of the diagonals as well. So that's something else that you've got to kind of maneuver your brush around as well. But just take your time. Don't overload your brush with a Corax white is my advice on this here and that kind of stuff. Just take your time, get a good point in your brush, and just gently maneuver it kind of through the shoulder pad. It will glide into those spaces and that kind of stuff, and worst case scenario you can hit it with some Black Templar contrast. But that's the second coat of white added now, so it looks really strong there, I think, at that point. So that white is lovely and stark here. So we've got a few red details now, and we're just going to add a bit of a kind of pop of color here with the red. So we're going to jump up to Blood Angels red here first of all. We're going to hit the sword with this, the grip of the sword, sorry, with this. We're also going to hit the plasma pistol. As you can see, that's what I'm actually doing just here in that case. Just take your time. Again, it's just a good contrast paint. It just goes on really nicely, I think there. I think I went on a tad too heavy with a plasma pistol, but I'll go back and I'll relayer that now with a base paint once we've done our shading here. Now we're going to jump up to all the icons here on the Black Templar armor. Some people do these in gold, some people do these in silver. I prefer this to look a kind of tinny brass color, and I think that's because I've actually done the stark white, so I think it stands out really nicely to do it in that kind of brassier color. So I've jumped up obviously to Rune Lord brass here in that case as well. So just apply that. As you can see, I'm applying it on the back banner here first, because that actually has the largest, one of the largest points to actually apply it on here. You can see the little Black Templar cross down at the bottom right of the shoulder pad there as well, that actually has the kind of parchment coming off it as well. Put it on that as well in that case. Avoid the Black Templar crosses on the shoulder pad here. I've left them black, but you can see I've lined the inside of the belt with it. I'm doing obviously the kind of the reliquaries, I should say, that are going down, the relics that are going down from his kind of waist there, his belt and that kind of thing as well. You can also hit the hilt of the sword with it and the pommel of the sword if you want as well in that case as well. But I only chose to hit the actual icon at the bottom of the sword there in that case, because I just actually thought the silver kind of stands out really nicely, and I've got good plans for what actually to do on the sword to make it pop a bit better, and silver kind of goes with what I'm planning with in the future. Now we're going to jump up to Ushabti Bone here. Just not too many bits of parchment on him to do actually, funnily enough, which is unusual, but we're just going to apply that on the scroll that was coming off of the actual icon on the banner. Next up, we're going to jump up to the kind of new stage here that's going to actually bring this whole model together now and really put the kind of finishing touches on that armor. So we're going to jump up to null and oil here in that case, and we're actually going to shade the entire model. Yep, you heard me right, stick it on everything. Put it on absolutely everything, even that beautiful white that you've spent about 10-15 minutes layering up there and that kind of thing. Put it on everything. Try not to let it pool. The cape in particular can be a little bit challenging. This is straight out of the pot null and oil here. Just don't overload your brush is what I would say. Don't overload your brush. Just take your time. You can see here I've even left some spots there on the kind of flatter panels of the cape and that kind of thing as well. But you can see that the null and oil is actually already affecting the armor. It's actually already darkening that armor down beautifully, which is actually what we want in that case. It's really changing the properties of the Black Templar and that dry brush as well, which is looking really, really sharp at the moment here. And you can also see then the way that it's sitting into the cloak as well and that kind of thing. So it does look really good and it is coming together well. At this point, I kind of wasn't sure how this was going to turn out. We are going to layer up the cloak in that as well here, and this was one of those stages where I kind of looked at this model and gone, have I just destroyed this model here? Have I put too much null and oil on it? But actually I waited for the null and oil to dry, and actually it did come back really well, I think, after the null and oil dried in here. So just take your time, don't overload your brush, and just gently work the null and oil across the whole of the model. Trust me, it will pay off. You just got to trust the process. That's all I'd say. Just trust the process here and that kind of stuff. And just remember that a lot of the colors here, like the white, isn't where we're going to actually leave the white when the null and oil dries here. So, as I said, just try and avoid the pooling where possible. It is difficult. Sometimes there's a lot of big kind of open flat panels on these cloaks here and that kind of stuff. But do try and stick with it there and try and work it around with your brush. Don't forget you can use your brush to try and soak it back up as well as the other thing if you do think that you've left some on kind of bigger panels there in that case as well. So now we're going to try something fun here. We're going to start the sword here in this case. So take some Leviathan blue contrast paint here. So this is actually traditionally what I would use actually on Crimson Fist armor to start off the armor here before I apply some other base coats. Apply Leviathan blue all over the blade of the sword here in this case. It's going to give us this kind of midnight blue hint to the sword here, which is absolutely lovely, by the way. Actually, I just like that color in general, to be honest with you, actually. So that's the Leviathan blue applied onto the sword just there. While our Leviathan blue contrast is drying, it gives us a good chance to go back and layer up that cloak, to be honest with you. So this is where I was saying don't worry about it if you feel like the null and oil isn't sitting well on that cloak, because we are going to come back and re-layer it with some Ulthwan grey here in that case. So it's just a bit of an off-white kind of colour. It's a really, really stark light grey effectively here, but it stands really nicely here as a kind of off-white in that case here. So take your time, avoid your recesses in particular here, because our null and oil is sitting lovely in all of these recesses here in that case and really adds a good stark contrast to our original colour here in that case. So we really want to just take our time, go back through the cloak and layer up with Ulthwan grey here. You may need to go back and do a second coat as well as the other thing. Now I didn't personally, because it actually just sat really nicely for me here, but you may need to go back and add a second coat depending on if you've had like a big bit of pooling on some of the cloak here and that kind of stuff. So you can see, just take your time. It was actually quite therapeutic to do this, because on parts where I had left a big kind of blob of null and oil, it was like I was kind of erasing my mistakes a little bit as well by doing this. So actually it was kind of nice actually to do it in the end. I do apologize, my camera really struggled to focus on this guy. It was really painful sometimes and that kind of thing. Sometimes I would have to stop and just put the camera down and restart here. So that's why you always see a lot of kind of hard cuts here as well. In that case, it was a very difficult model for some reason to actually focus in on here for the camera. But just take your time here and that kind of stuff. Keep your paint thin as well and that kind of thing as well as the other thing. Obviously, it sounds really simple, but it really does it does help, and it gives us these lovely smooth kind of coats that we're getting here at the moment and that kind of thing as well. But it is coming together. You can see there where I've left the recesses as well. You can see the kind of clear definition there where the cloak and the tabards are flapping in the wind there as well, which is really, really nice. So you can see, again, I'm just leaving the recesses good. What we're going to do now is we're going to jump up to some Mephiston red here now that we've layered that cloak up, And what we're going to do is just relayer all that red back up here. So we're going to touch up the plasma pistol, and we're going to touch up the grip of the power sword then in that case as well, the mastercrafted power sword. So just take your time, much like the cloak here as well. Stay away from those recesses because we want that shade to sit in those recesses there. And this is where I was saying, obviously I maybe went a touch heavy on the Blood Angels contrast here in that case, but you can see here when I'm layering the Mephiston red over the Blood Angels contrast here, it's sitting really nicely. Actually, it's filled those recesses really well. You can see a lot of the kind of definition now in those lines as well, in the actual line work and in the actual kind of the recesses of the model as well, which is really nice to see as well. So that's the Mephiston red layered up there. It looks really sharp now at the moment, doesn't it? So we're going to jump up then to Evil Sunz Scarlet. This is actually, I love these two as a color combo personally, and if you wanted to pump it one higher and add kind of more of a spot highlight, you could even jump up to Wild Rider Red if you wanted to add a little flare of orange in there as well, which is really, really nice. But just layer this Evil Sunz Scarlet here in a kind of more selective manner here in that case as well. So just take your time and layer it across there. Try and get it inside the Mephiston red, and it will make a little bit of a difference then in that case. It'll just pump up those colors a little bit more nicely. So back to the fun part now, or the part that I was kind of nervous about, to be honest with you here. So we're going to make the power sword have a lightning effect on it here in that case. So that's why we gave that Leviathan blue contrast as a base color here in the background here, because it was just really cool to see that. What we're going to do is we're going to jump up to Thousand Suns blue. Yes, I know we abhor the witch, but we will still use their paint color because it is a good blue to use, to be honest with you here. So we're going to go and layer that up, try and draw these kind of streaking lines. You can see I'm kind of trying to make my brush kind of shake a little bit in my hand there. I'm trying to kind of vibrate my brush in my hand here. If you find your lines are looking too straight, don't be afraid to draw forks off of the curve or the kind of straight lines where you've drawn in here. You can see I'm doing the back of it now as well. I've kind of drawn these kind of lines here. I'm trying to vibrate it across. These lines can be a little bit thick as well, by the way, because we actually need to layer some colors inside of these lines. So the thicker you kind of make these lines, the more wiggle room you're giving yourself when you're actually trying to do the smaller highlights inside of it as well now, to be honest with you. So don't be afraid to do that. So that's our first kind of 2 coats of Thousand Suns blue on there. Now we're going to go to a 50-50 mix of Vallejo blue-green and Thousand Suns blue. Now, by the way, Armour blue will do the same job. Armour blue is absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with Armour blue. I'm just really enjoying Vallejo blue-green at the moment, to be honest with you. So I've added the Vallejo blue-green 50-50 against the Thousand Suns blue here. 2 coats here. The first one, try and keep it inside of the Thousand Suns blue. The second one, if you can get it even narrower again, then do. You can see I've switched to a much thinner brush here. This is my Artist Opus 00 brush here. So you can see I've switched to that just to try and get it even thinner in that case as well there. So this is us just working that through there. And you can see there the lightning is becoming a little bit more defined, a little bit brighter. Now it's not popping quite enough here in that case. We're not quite at that last stage then in that case. So we're going to jump up to Pro Acryl Bow Titanium White here. We've got a few steps for this. So you can see I've started to add a few dots onto the sword here. We're also going to put this across the visor that actually goes on the model. We're also going to put it in the plasma coils then as well of the plasma gun. And then what I actually decided is I decided that actually the dots weren't popping enough in the power sword. So actually I did an even smaller white line and tried to make my brush in like a jagged motion go all the way through the inside of these lines here. You'll see it actually in the next shot as well. But it'll really look the part then basically when we're doing it then in that case. Before I did that though, I actually jumped up to Frostheart just to layer up the actual the plasma coils. It's a really easy step to get good plasma coils, to be honest with you. They look good and realistic here. So this is before I did the jagged lines, and this is after I did the jagged lines. So it looks amazing with the jagged lines, doesn't it? I also threw a little bit of Blood Angels contrast just in the eyes as well then, or in the visor I should say, of the Black Templar armor as well. But that just looks amazing now with those jagged white lines joining those dots together now. It just looks like energy flowing through it now in that case. You can see I've applied the back banner now, and I've also applied a transfer onto it as well now in that case. Now, I haven't applied the matte varnish to the transfer yet at this stage, but what I am going to jump up to now is I am going to base the model now. So we're going to jump up to Demon Earth here in that case from AK Diorama. Guys, this is my this is my 4th or 5th video now where I'm gonna say that aka diorama base and texture paste is really good here. In that case, it is truly really good. I don't even gravitate to anyone else now, to be honest with you, but it's really good. And I really like this Demon Earth color as well. It's so different, do you know, that way it's really quite different here in that case as well. So again, just apply this all over the base. You can see that's why I actually didn't really do anything to the rocks underneath, because truth be told, I just covered it all in this Demon Earth stuff. I just think it looked so cool, to be honest with you. The color is so vibrant and different as well, and the coolness of that kind of bluey purple color, I thought, really pops off of the actual black of the armor as well here. Now we're going to do some more work to this actually when it actually goes on the model and dries, because when you look at the Black Templars, like Codex artwork, and particularly their Codex in 9th edition is a great bit of artwork, I think, on it and that kind of stuff. And they have a lot of kind of purple hues through the back of that kind of Codex artwork here, but it's still regarded as probably one of the best kind of Codex covers that they've had, basically, or certainly a really good one anyway, in my opinion. So we're going to add a kind of few of those purple hues through this kind of texture paste here, basically, and that kind of stuff as well in that case. So as I said, just put a good layer of this all over it. But what we're going to do then is we're going to jump up to Druchii Violet Shade then in that case. And the Druchii Violet Shade then is going to give us the more purple hue. But as I said, make sure you put this all over the base here. So this is us doing the Druchii Violet Shade now in that case. So here you go. You can see I've already started applying some over there. And you can see there the way that it dries in already and that kind of stuff. It's adding some definition to the base and paste as well, which is already dried. By the way, guys, comment down below if basing paste texture drying times are just the worst, to be honest with you. It's 2 hours that I can't do anything to this model, and I'm right at the closing stage of it, and all I want to do is finish it, to be totally honest with you. But here you go. So the Druchii Violet is going all over. I've also rimmed the base in Abaddon Black as well, just to get that sorted as well. But you can see even on the rocks and that kind of stuff, I've applied the texture paste, and it looks really good as well. It still looks quite natural on part of the earth as well. But it has been a long and arduous journey to get to the end of this model, if I'm going to be totally honest with you. I had a lot of stages where I thought that this model just was going to do me in, basically, in that case. But guys, do let me know what you guys think. Did I do a great job? Is there another better way that I could do the Black Templar armor? Am I an idiot for going with the stark white colors? I'm going to put a couple of still images coming up here now as well. But do let me know what you think. I'm really interested in always getting feedback here, guys. And what do you think of the lightning sword as well and that kind of thing? As always, thank you very much for your time. Like and subscribe. And thank you very much to everyone who has subscribed so far as well. You've given me a lot of hope for continuing the channel. So have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.